Hey, Read Through the Word. Today is March 26th, and today's lesson is called Faithful. Now, here we are, almost halfway through the book of Joshua, and it goes by really quickly, so hang on. And we are at this place right here in Joshua. I'm in Joshua chapter 12, and I know every bit of you wants to skip this reading. Do not. Please don't. Please don't. I want to talk to you about why you shouldn't. Okay, we are in Joshua chapter 12. I'm going to recap of verses 1 through 6 were actually yesterday's reading, but today is verses 7 through 24. And it says, the following is a list of the kings that Joshua and the Israelite armies defeated on the west side of the Jordan, from Baal-gad in the valley of Lebanon to Mount Halak, which leads up to Seir. It says Joshua gave this land to the tribe of Israel as their possession, including the hill country, the western foothills, the Jordan Valley, the mountain slopes, the Judean wilderness, and the Negev. The people who lived in this region were all the Ites, the Hittites, the Amorites, hold on to that, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And these are the kings of Israel, the kings that Israel defeated. The king of Jericho, the king of Ai near Bethel, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, the king of Gezer, the king of Debir, the king of Geder, the king of Hormah, the king of Arad, the king of Libnah, the king of Adullam, the king of Makkedah, the king of Bethel, the king of Tappuah, the king of Hefer, the king of Aphek, the king of Lasharon, the king of Madon, the king of Hazor, the king of Shemron Menor, the king of Asaph, the king of Tanakh, the king of Megiddo, the king of Kadesh, the king of Jochanan in Carmel, the king of Dor, the king of Goyim, and the king of Tirzah. In all, 31 kings were defeated. Okay, you're like, Lisa, it's a list of names that are hard to pronounce. I know, but can I tell you, it's a whole lot more than that. It's a whole lot more than that. So, Joshua 12, in yesterday's reading, the 1 through 6, begins with a record. Look at this. This is the lens through which I want you to see that the most important thing when we're reading the scripture is, number one, what does this teach me about who God is? What does this teach me about the very character and the very nature of God? And that's actually what you're reading right here. And I know, but hold on. I'm going to prove the point. Okay. So Joshua 12 begins with a record of the faithfulness of God to Moses and Israel. So yesterday's reading, chapter 12, verses 1 through 6, that's exactly what that does. It tells us that Moses and the Israelites conquered the land from the valley of Ammon to Mount Hermon, so from the south to the north. Moses defeated King Sihon and King Og, who ruled from Bashan and Moab. In my mind, I always see a map in front of me, and I'm pointing to it like you see it too. I am so sorry. In my classes, I always have a whiteboard, and I always throw up a little map. It's not, I always say, I am not an artist, and this is not to scale, but sort of gather where the Jordan River is. And there you go. Okay, Moses gave the land east of the Jordan River to the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half the tribe of Manasseh. And then God continues his faithfulness to Joshua and Israel. And that's where we pick up in our reading today in chapter 12. It says that Joshua is given victory over the kings who lived west of the Jordan River. And I know this doesn't sound like, but okay, probably I'll see if I can find one, a map of this that I can link in the lesson. Let me write myself a note so I don't forget. Map to link. All right. Where you could really see all of these people. this is why there's so many things. So many things. But the first thing is that God gives the land to Israel just as he promised. And here's the thing. Turn to, and I remember back then, as I just went through and I talked about the Amorites, I said, hold on to that. Okay? So now we're going to pick that back up and we're going to backtrack a little bit. Back to Genesis chapter 12. And when I taught this, I said, hold on to that. We're going to come back. Here we are. In Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 9, it says this. Now the Lord said to Abram, go forth from your country, from your relatives, and from your father's house, to the land which I will show you. And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great. Sorry. And so you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed. So Abram went forth as the Lord had spoken to him. And Lot with him. And now Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. Go to verse 7. It says this. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants I will give this land. So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to them. And that's 1 through 7. And then in I was going to show you more. But this is exactly what God... So this is 500 years. Over 500 years after God said, I will give this land to your descendants. I will give your land. And then later, that's in the first part of the covenant in Genesis 12. Then later in Genesis, he will tell Abraham, he will say, I will give this land to your people. But first, your people are going to have to go spend time in slavery. And when the iniquity of the Amorites is complete, when the sin has gotten so bad in the people who are in the land, I will raise up your people, and they will be my instruments of judgment. And they will go through, and I will use them to clear the land so that my people can be set apart for me. Well, we're about to go into that. They're going into the land. So we have what looks like this list of 31 kings defeated by Joshua. Here's the thing. They're defeated by Joshua and an army of men with absolutely no military training, relying on the promises of God. God said so, it will be so. And they did. Remember the other day, trust and obey? That's what they did. That's the battle plan. The battle plan is to trust and obey. But you have an army full of people who basically toted around tents and put tents up every day. This is not the military elite special forces. This is people with no training and nothing other than empty hands they bring to God. And God says, go, and they do. So when we're reading through Scripture, we need to remember that the whole counsel of God, the whole Bible, is a record of God, who he is, and his actions with his people. And that what we see is God's record that he has been faithful. So not just in your life, not just in your life, not just in your parents' lives, not just in your grandparents' lives, not just in your great-grandparents, but we're talking back to the great-great-great-great-great-greats. More greats than you can count. Back in time, that Scripture has given us a record of the faithfulness of God. All throughout time, he has been faithful. And he will continue to be faithful until our faith is made sight and we see him face to face. We'll see you next time on Read Through the Word.